right now. Buy any Samsung Galaxy smartphone for $0 down. And get a free Samsung Galaxy tablet. Pretty neat, huh? Only at AT&T.
Of millions of people, and possibly the structural, I guess, integrity of the entire law being taken down if they were to strike down subsidies for people living in those 36 states.
Okay, so first of all, 7.5 million people, roughly. Who's right, who's wrong? Well, it's a mixed bag. So I think the language is fairly...
The word state synonymously with country, with nation very often. The state can be the United States.
My guess is that they used the state in that rest of the bill to mean the states.
I would yes.
Okay,
I think it's
so that's a plain language supports the conservative version, I believe. Okay. Now, along with the plain language, oftentimes conservatives will say we were trying to find the original intent. And so Scalia said that a million times in a million rulings, and he always says they will say things like, Madison and Jefferson couldn't have possibly been talking about the third trimester. Roe versus Wade is ridiculous. It goes against the original intent of the framers.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, the original intent is abundantly clear because they didn't write the law in the 1700s or the 1800s. They wrote it a couple of years ago. All the original framers of this law are still around. You ask them, and they all say, we meant the states or the federal government.
Yes.
That was our intent, and there is no dispute over that. The context of the entire bill leads you to that same conclusion.
It has to, because they would not have set up a law that would have crumbled under its own weight after 2 or 3 years.
Right. So even if you took the context, which is exactly what you should do, figure out what was their intent, you would get to they meant the states or the federal government. But you don't have to take the context. You can just ask them, including Republicans who were on committees, saying, yeah, well, obviously we meant states or the federal government. That was so obvious, right?
Well, here's how obvious it was. This was not something that was being debated at the time. There was, strong, obviously, if you were around, there was strong opposition to Obamacare. It had nothing to do with this. Nobody on the Republican side noticed this for a couple of years after the law was actually passed. So, you cannot say that they meant anything other than what the defendants are saying in this case.
So all of a sudden, Scalia and some of the conservatives don't give a damn about original intent.
Yeah.
They're like,
original content, less intent.
Yeah. All that stuff I've been saying for decades about original intent, not so much. As long as my politics is against it, I don't care what the philosophy, judicial precedent, I don't care about any of that. I'm basically Scalia and presumably Alito and Thomas are saying, I'm a Republican. I don't give a damn about judicial principles and consistency. Consistency. You remember what we did in Bush v. Gore?
Yeah.
When we said we were for states' rights and then we killed states' rights? No. We're Republicans and we can't wait to do damage to Obama. I think in essence they'd have to say that because the weight of every other principle is against them. And then there's a great irony here that conservatives would be trying to overturn Obamacare under a technicality.
Yeah.
Because they're always complaining about that, right? The criminal got away because of a technicality, right?
This would be to them a frivolous lawsuit, I believe.
That's right.
Which they say they're against.
Right. And the funny thing is we've shown in other shows, the people who sued here technically are average citizens they found out of nowhere that when Mother Jones went to go talk to them, they're like, one of them was like, what am I suing about again?
Yeah.
Okay, she's like, I want everybody to have healthcare. That's what this is about, right? They're like, no, this would take away healthcare. She's like, really? You sure? She's like, I don't know. I was promised a trip to Washington. Feels like going to Paris for me. Okay, so one of the things that happened was
we can offer to take her to Paris if she clicks.
That's right. So they might not even have any real plaintiffs.
Yeah.
So they lose on almost every ground there is, except they're hanging on this technicality in the most ironic way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was I believe the first question that one of Justice Ginsburg asked about was, do the people that you're representing actually have standing? Have they been harmed by this law? Now, Carvin, of course, asserts that they have been harmed, but he hasn't actually demonstrated it yet. So there's the question of whether or not they even have standing to question the law in the first place. And so I just have a couple of quotes we're going to read from the justices so we can try to read into what they're thinking at this time. But in the back of your mind, I do want you to bear in mind that You can disagree over policies. You can disagree over whether or not the individual mandate is fundamentally constitutional. The Supreme Court says it is, but you can debate that. But you also have to bear in mind the consequences of changing the law at this point. If 7 million people lose health insurance, what percentage of them will fall ill without any treatment? What percent of them, what raw number of Americans will die as a result of losing their health insurance in what is effectively a game of political checkers going on here? They're playing games with people's lives. Now, we always throw that term around, but it is literal in this case. 7 million people, many of them will die if their health insurance is taken away at this point. Now, the first thing that I want to bring up is from Judge Anthony Kennedy. And now this is very important because we believe that the swing vote is either going to be Justice John Roberts, because he was the swing vote in 2012 when the individual mandate was being analyzed, and Anthony Kennedy. So he says here, in referencing those 4 words that I talked about before, that your argument raises a serious constitutional question. He says, can we actually have a situation in which the states are being sort of forced, their arm is being twisted to set up this exchange or possibly losing some sort of tax incentives and things like that? So that is, if you want the Affordable Care Act to continue, that should be worrying for you. We also have him saying here, the states are being told either create your own exchange or we'll send your insurance market into a death spiral, basically summing up that line of thought. And it's entirely possible that other justices agree with that idea. But you do have Justice Elena Kagan saying, we don't look at 4 words, we look at the whole text, implying there that she, at least, will be looking at the entirety of the bill. And Justice Stephen Breyer says, if you want to go into the context of the law, at that point your argument really is weaker. So, but those are considered sort of safe votes for the continuation of the Affordable Care Act.
I want to go back to this issue of the technicality. Okay, because, all right, let's think about this. No Republican actually voted for this bill in the Senate. Okay, so it was all Democrats. So you have to look at their intent. Yeah. The intent of the people who voted against it are to kill it and not to pass it at all. So you have to look at the intent of the people who passed the bill. If you ask those people, they are unanimous. Every single one of them says the intent was to create this insurance exchange either by the states or by the federal government. So I would like the Supreme Court justices that are the so-called liberals, the Breyers and the Sotomayor, Kagan, etc., to turn around to the conservative justices and get them on the record. I know that this doesn't really happen in public.
There's no gotcha questions.
Right. But they do have internal conversations behind the scenes. Yeah. They absolutely do. They do deliberate in that way.
They're sometimes interviewed as well.
Yeah. And I would like them to ask the Scalias of the world, are you saying you are forever giving up on the principle of original intent?
Yeah.
So so you're going to promise me 2 things. One, you're never going to mention original intent ever again in any case, because you are saying here definitively that you don't believe in original intent. Because I have 100% of the people who voted for this bill saying their original intent was to do this, and you're going to vote against it.
We can call them up right now if you want to.
That's right. Okay. Now, and I'd like a second thing, just because I know you're a principled guy. I mean, that's what you built your whole reputation on, right, Scalia? Principle, right? Okay. I would like you to go back and say in public, I was wrong in every single case that I ever mentioned original intent. I'm so sorry. Obviously, if the original intent is 100% clear, I still don't give a shit. Okay? So I was lying or I was mistaken in every one of those cases, and you should reconsider those cases.
I mean, unfortunately, we don't have Scalia. They did ask Thomas that, and he was quoted as saying, that's kind of an inside Supreme Court joke. I don't know how many people are going to get it, but anyway, we will never know. Michael Shore is going to love that one.
That's right. Those are a dime a dozen. I was talking to Michael, super random story, earlier today, and I gave him we were talking about, it was I made a joke about Paraguay, of course. And he's like, are you referring to, and he mentioned a local issue happening in Paraguay and mentioned the leader of Paraguay's name. I was like, dude, you're unfucking real, man. And I said, that's what I'm giving you a pop quiz, okay? I said, who is the leader of Iraq? Okay, now that's pretty hard, because he's not in the news that much.
Yeah.
You would think, like, leader of Iraq, we should know that, right?
Baghdadi.
Okay. Well, some parts of Iraq. That's right. And actually, it's a tough question. And, okay, so I assume you don't know.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Right, okay. It's Haider al-Abadi, okay? Now, okay, even when I say it, most people go, "Oh, I guess," right? And Michael said, pause before saying al-Baghdadi, because, and I might be mispronouncing his name. Anyway, he paused because he's like, "Is this a trick question?" Because it's so obvious. Like, no, it's not a trick question. Nobody else knows that.
He was thinking about, like, well, which branch of government do you mean?
I mean, I hope you're not talking about the parliamentarian.
Yeah. Sergeant at Arms. I bet he knows. Yeah.
Okay.
Impressive guy. Okay, want to mix it up?
Yes.
Talk about something different. An upcoming Justice Department report is expected to reveal that Ferguson police officers and the municipal courts in that city have consistently and systematically violated the civil rights of African Americans living in Ferguson, both in their actions, in how they prosecute people for crimes, and, more shockingly, internal emails showing consistent racial bias amongst police officers operating in Ferguson. So first, the stats. According to the Department of Justice, African Americans were targeted for traffic tickets and fines at a disproportional rate in the majority black city. 85% of traffic stops between 2012 and 2014 were black citizens, who also made up 93% of all arrests during that same period. In addition, 90% of all citations and 93% of jaywalking tickets were against black people. I did some very basic research. Ferguson is 67.4% African American, so it sounds like something like 50% disproportionately affected by citations, jaywalking tickets, traffic stops, and things of that sort. Over the course of multiple years. And we've heard many times over the past 18 months about the fact that the community in Ferguson and many other places is not just angry about these individual cases of killings. They are angry about a system that has been set up and sustained over multiple decades where certain classes of people, certain colors of people are not treated equally by the police, regardless of the skin colors of those police officers. And we are seeing now, according to the Department of Justice, at least in those years, that is quite clearly the case.
So now, John's going to read you some of the racist emails sent between the cops and the municipal court in a second. But even before we get to that, if you're one of the conservatives who recoils at this news, like, Holder's Justice Department, yeah, they made it racial. Understand a couple things. You betray yourself, because this isn't about you. You're not part of the police force in Ferguson. So when you take it upon yourself, it's a weird admission that, like, wait, are you accusing me of racism? Because I think like that. No, we weren't.
To be accused because you think about that a lot.
Right. We weren't accusing anybody of anything except this particular investigation until people jump in and they're like, no, there isn't. But wait, you didn't do the investigation. They just did the investigation. You see the disproportionate numbers. You're about to see the email. So, like, what is it about you that makes you think that this is about you? Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that has been throughout this entire thing, back to Trayvon Martin and earlier. Like, they see it as, we have to protect these upstanding police officers, because if they get taken down, when they seem so unassailable, they're civil servants, then someone like me who does harbor racial animus, it'll be so much easier to reveal that I am a racist as well.
Yeah, and it's just like, they're like, well, they relate to those guys. They think, like, I'm like those guys. Yeah. So if you're accusing them, you're accusing me. Yeah. Now, I don't know. Maybe you do write racist emails like this. Maybe you do disproportionately go after African Americans. I hope you don't. But when we find out whoever does, we should take action. And that, by the way, that's why we have the First Amendment. That's why we have the United States Constitution. Because it turns out when you do peaceably assemble and you exercise your freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, it turns out sometimes it leads to an investigation that uncovers facts that are really, really important. Yeah. So if you're sitting there getting judged, getting arrested, getting traffic tickets, getting fines, getting
constantly pulled over.
By the way, something that conservatives hate, the government continually taking more of your money disproportionately and unfairly. Yeah. I mean, conservatives, you should be totally on the side of African Americans here in Ferguson, because it's a form of a tax. When you say, I'm not going to go after these people, but I'm going to go extra after these. Imagine if they did that to right-wingers. They said, we're going to give out more traffic tickets to right-wingers, or to white people, or to Christians, okay? Yeah. And said, we're going to target those guys 50% more than we target anybody else, so you're going to have to give the government more money. How angry would you be? So it's a good thing that they protested, so that we can have this investigation, so we can find out what was actually happening. These are real numbers, let alone the emails, which are even more devastating.
Yeah, so let's actually go to the emails, because the actual outcomes in terms of prosecutions and things like that should be enough to convince you that something has to be done in Ferguson and other places, but I think for most people, the emails are going to be a little bit harder to deal with. So, first of all, members of the police force and municipal court officials exchanged racist emails, the investigation found, including one from 2008, predicting that President-elect Barack Obama would not be in office long because it said, "What black man holds a steady job for 4 years?" Okay. Again, you're talking about both court officials and the police officers.
So, look, here's the thing. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and go, that's just an innocent joke about the president. They made 1,000 jokes about Clinton and Bush, and Bush got called a monkey. It doesn't mean you're racist against white people, etc. And if it was just without the empirical data backing up how much they target African Americans, I might say, well, look, maybe it was just an innocent joke. Although it does betray a mindset of black people. They're not. If I see them on the street, they're not working. They're not real citizens.
Yeah.
They're moochers, etc. But read the second email, and you get a better sense of the context.
A May 2011 email said an African-American woman in New Orleans was admitted into the hospital for a pregnancy termination. 2 weeks later, she received a check for $5,000. She phoned the hospital to ask who it was from. The hospital said Crime Stoppers.
Boom. I mean, look at that. So that is the cops in Ferguson who assume that every black baby born into this world is going to turn into a criminal.
Yeah.
That's why that joke is quote-unquote funny, right? That's why they say the joke, right? If they didn't think that they were going to turn into criminals, it wouldn't be a joke, right? So
they're supposed to be the Crime Stoppers, the police.
Yeah.
They're saying if you kill black people, it will solve your crime problems. And the problem we have with Ferguson is that they're killing black people. The jokes were before the killings. This is in their mind as they're going out on their patrols. The idea that, wouldn't it be funny if we gunned down people? That might make this town a little bit safer.
Yeah. And so when you look at the entire context, including the results of how often they target African Americans, and you look at some of these emails, which obviously don't represent every cop in Ferguson, obviously, right? But it gives you a very solid picture of the assumptions built into the system. And in that particular area, unfortunately, in a lot of areas, but in this case, we did the investigation, we have the facts, right? The assumption is black people aren't working, and they're bound to be criminals. So, of course, now, if that's your assumption, is it surprising that you'd arrest black people more? Mm. And do you really think it's because they're committing more crime, or is it perhaps the cop assumes from day one that they're going to be criminals? And if you assume that about anybody, of course you'd arrest them more. And of course you would be monumentally unfair to them. Again, take out black, put in any other thing you like, and it would seem outrageous. I mean, imagine if anywhere in America they found out, let's say that it's in a liberal place like San Francisco or Massachusetts, and they found out that the cops are writing jokes about stupid Christians. The best thing to do with them is abort them so they don't commit any crimes, right? Okay. And
they're pulling over people with Jesus fish on the back of their cars.
Yes, and they're writing emails about, like, obviously we're going to target the Christians. Those guys are bums.
Yeah,
right.
They can't keep a job.
Your head would explode. Your head would explode. And so your head should be exploding equally. These are American citizens, and they've been treated so unfairly for so long. Can you not see that? And can we not begin to address that problem today?
Now, the worst thing for me, and my final point, is so you show them the data, you show them all of that. People in the media, people on Fox News already have a response. No, it's not that we're racist. It's that black people naturally commit more crimes, and so it makes sense to target them more. So their answer to being charged as racist is to say one of the most racist things that we routinely hear coming from right-wing media. And they will continue to pound that narrative out there. And we've seen it on every Fox News show, that they just naturally commit more crimes. It makes sense to profile them. That is their response to the legitimate racial grievances of African Americans in this country.
All right, look, every time this comes up, it enrages me that there's a stereotype that blacks are more violent and hence commit more crimes and get arrested more. Blacks suffered the worst violence in this country's history, and among the worst in world history, at the hand of whites, right? I mean, they were enslaved, whipped, beaten, raped, tortured, lynched. And then they have the fucking gall to turn around and say blacks are too violent. No, I can't abide by that. I just can't. And so, that doesn't mean all white people today are that guilty. We're not as stupid as conservatives. We don't make generalizations like that. but you can't take a culture that has been that bathed in violence and then blame the victims of that violence and say, no, you guys are too violent. Now, I can't abide by it.
Do you want to know how violent black people are? They are so violent that to get the South to stop slavery, we had to have a war with white people on white people that killed over 600,000 white people. That's how violent black people are. That white people are willing to kill over 500,000 of themselves to continue keeping them in slavery.
Yeah. So, all right. But anyway, thank God the Justice Department did this investigation. I hope it's the beginning of the fix.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, let's take a quick break. We got a lot more stories for you guys, including the curious case of Benjamin Carson. We got to say that one.
I like it.
All right. We'll be right back.
There are two kinds of walls. The ones that keep people out, like this one, and the ones that keep people in, like your living room.
Back on a Young Turks, Jake and John with you guys. A couple of updates. We will be in Austin, except John, ironic, because he was studying for his PhD in Austin.
Yeah, just someone tweet that to Jimmy Dore.
Anyway, March 16th, Alamo Draft House. Go to TYTnetwork.com. Scroll around, you'll see there's a big bar for it. You can click on that, get tickets. We'd love to see you there. There's good food, good movie, obviously, and we'll be there and we'll talk to you guys. So check that out if you're in Austin. Yes, at least the food. I had said at one point, I think in a post-game show, that we would have a new app coming out last week. I forgot to mention to you guys, just kidding. That got delayed for the first time, no fault of our own. It's going to come out, honestly, in now less than 2 months. Okay, but I'll keep you up to date on that. And then final update is on the car. So we started at 15,100. I mean, that seems like that's already a pretty high number for the car that I bought back in 2001 and pounded into the ground. Right before we went to break, sorry, 50,200. Now I just checked, 15,300.
What?
Sorry,
We're gonna get that wolf.
Can I see 16,000? Can I see it? tinyurl.com/jankscar. We got a war on our hands.
It looks like it's they pay money and then they get to scar you. It's Jankscar.
Oh, Jankscar. Right. No,
Yeah.
you don't get to do that. Okay.
You were wrong about one thing, though. Think Tank will be making an appearance at South by Southwest.
Ooh.
We'll get more details as we go by.
Yeah. All right, let's go for it.
Okay. I had something I had to tell you. God damn it. Okay, I'll remember for the next break. Ben Carson has formed a presidential exploratory committee, and so the question is, what is the first issue that he's going to tackle as a candidate? Well, it's the issue of how people become gay, of course. He's a doctor. He's got a theory. Let's listen.
Same-sex marriage. You have equal protection. It's working its way through the courts. The decisions are getting more and more uniform. But then you have people of faith who say marriage is ours. God says it is a man and a woman. The Bible says, my faith says. Which one wins with Dr. Carson?
Here's what I would do. I would do what the Constitution says. Constitution says civil issues of that nature should be determined at the state level. Why does it say that? Because the judicial system at the state level has to answer to the people.
What if people of a state vote for a law 100 to 0 that winds up infringing on the rights of a minority, like happened very often with slavery, like many would argue is happening now with people who are gay?
And our Constitution was followed, and we corrected those things.
Yeah, we corrected them by not allowing you to discriminate, and that's what the courts are ruling right now.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I love that it just corrected itself. Corrected. Better. Improving all the time.
By the way we corrected it is we fought tooth and nail and barely got it past conservatives. Conservatives at the time said under no condition would they allow for the end of slavery, would they allow for civil rights, due process rights for African Americans, equal rights for African Americans? No way! And we fought tooth and nail to make that happen, and now we're fighting tooth and nail on the issue of gay rights.
Yeah.
And we have Ben Carson opposing us, saying, what? If it's meant to be, it'll work out.
Yeah. To be fair, most of the Republican Party still doesn't want those equal rights for black people. But let's get to the issue of choice. How exactly does someone become gay? Here's that theory.
Isn't that what's happening right now with same-sex marriage? It's being corrected as a form of violation of equal protection.
No, you can't just say because it happened that way this time, this is the same situation. It's not the same situation. Because people have no control over their race, for instance.
Do you think they have control over their sexuality?
Absolutely.
Do you think being gay is a choice?
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Because a lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay. So, did something happen while they were in there? Ask yourself that question.
Never go to prison, and you know there's a whole theory of dominance.
Wait a minute. I said a lot of people who go in, come out. Are you denying that that's true?
I am not denying that that's true, but I am denying that that's as a basis of understanding homosexuality.
If, in fact, that is the case, then it obviously thwarts what you just said.
No, this is not.
Okay. So I have a bit of a unique take on this, but I would have liked Chris Cuomo there to ask the follow-up that we did with Pastor Manning. Well, if you think it's a choice, and for example, if you were in prison, would you be tempted to make a different choice, right? And I'm always curious what their answer to that is. And we know in our interview with very conservative Pastor Manning, he said, oh, he was in prison, and he did think it was a choice, and he was enormously tempted. And so, you never know, maybe Ben Carson would have admitted likewise.
Yeah, or when did you choose Ben Carson to be straight? And then tell us about that period of uncertainty beforehand. What were all the various pros and cons that you considered before you decided to be straight? Presumably decided to be straight. We don't know for sure.
Right. Now, here's my unique take on this, though. I actually think that he's not entirely wrong. Okay, now, here's what I mean by that, because we're looking at this in too much of a binary way of thinking. Somebody's either gay or somebody's straight. So if you're straight, I think that, if you're straight out there, you'll think the same way that I did. I was always into girls, and it was not really much of a question. And
Supposedly.
yeah, right. Wait, sure, right? Now, and if you're gay, it is more of a question, because society says, be straight, be straight, be straight. But no matter how much society pressured you, you couldn't help it, because in reality you're gay. Okay. Yeah. Now that is true for a lot of people, but I think most people will concede that sexuality is a spectrum, and so within that spectrum, we're talking about the people who don't have a choice. This is super rough, but are presumably like 90% straight, 90% gay, right? And I'm not saying 100% because that's comical, right? So, no matter how much that gay guy tries, and he dated a couple of girls, he had sex a couple of times, etc. That was just 10% of being straight, and it didn't work. He didn't have a choice. He's overwhelmingly gay, right? And maybe a lot of people are overwhelmingly straight, but there's also a lot of people that are in the middle, right, in this spectrum. And so I think for those people, it is a bit of a choice, right? But they don't complete that logic, that line of thinking. Okay, so it's a choice. Great. The whole country is built on choice. Yeah. The whole point, and I thought part of what the Republican Party stood for is freedom, liberty. So you're saying it's a choice, and let's take that away from them. Yeah. Why? Why would we take that away from them?
I get why sort of socially we have discussions over whether or not it's a choice, because the idea is that for really strong anti-gay people, it's harder to be anti-gay if you know that what you hate about a person is something they can't change. And so that's why we try to convince them that it matters. But on the other side, what does that have to do with whether or not it should be legal to have a gay marriage? Like if you chose or if it was born, they just say, oh, choice, so it doesn't matter. But also, the thing that scares me about Ben Carson in that clip is not necessarily that he's anti-gay, it's that he's an extremely sloppy thinker. Let's say that he's right, that people go in straight and come out gay. I would argue that realistically and tragically, they go in straight and they come out having been raped, which is a slightly different spin on the same idea. His explanation is not the only explanation. Perhaps they went in gay but closeted and then were sort of forced or had the opportunity to finally come to grips with what they are and came out straight. There are other alternative explanations as well. Or they come out extremely traumatized, and we know that some of the research actually that a friend of mine does in terms of early childhood abuse and the effects that it has on sexuality and things like that. But anyway, the point is that Ben Carson's explanation is not the only one, and even if he's right, it has nothing to do with the laws that he's talking about.
And I'll take it one step further, which is, if you believe in Ben Carson's way of thinking, then men are enormously bisexual. So they could go either way. It depends on their circumstances. So if they're out in the real world, maybe they have plenty of opportunities to be with women, and there's a lot of societal pressure not to be gay, so they go largely straight, right? Yeah. But if they're in prison and there's only guys around, according to Ben Carson, most guys will have sex with other guys. Well, then you're saying most guys are, at the very least, enormously bisexual. Yep. And if that's the case, why are you discriminating against an enormous percentage of the population? Why are you saying to all those men who you think are actually somewhat gay, okay, you just called most men gay, right? Then why are you taking rights away from them? Don't we want as many Americans as possible to have the same rights?
Yeah. Yeah, he just said most Republican men are gay. And by the way, I know that he's running for the presidency and everything, but when he inevitably gets his ass kicked, can we actually have him in for an interview? Because he'll be wanting to sell a book or give speeches or whatever at that point. Then we should sit him down, ask him to pinpoint that date and why it is that he hates gay people so much.
And I will do a prediction for you as to Ben Carson's trajectory at some point in this primary run. He will at one point peak as the number one candidate, and everybody will go, oh my God, look at this, Ben Carson might be there. And then he'll plummet back down to earth, and then he'll eventually drop out, and he'll go on a book-selling tour, as John says. Yeah. And then Republicans will get to feel good about themselves. No, it could have been Ben Carson. It could have. You remember that?
We considered it.
Yeah, remember that 1 week he was leading the polls? Yeah. We thought about it. We're not racist.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, after we thought about it, we thought, no way. Right? But we gave him a week.
Yeah. We voted for Ted Cruz. He's technically not white. Anyway. All right. Yes. Okay. Why don't we mix it up? Let's go to something we talked about a little bit yesterday on the show. While American conservatives were raving about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress, not everybody in the media was as big a fan. Here is Chris Matthews, someone that this show has occasionally butted heads with, but he, not buying it. Let's watch.
I'll get
to the heart of this speech now. This man from a foreign government walked into the United States legislative chamber and tried to take over U.S. foreign policy. He said, "You should trust me, not your president, on this. I am the man you should trust. I am your true leader on this question of the U.S. Geopolitics. To protect yourself, you must listen to me and not to this president." It was a startling situation to allow someone to come in knowing that that was going to be their message in the chamber of the U.S. Congress. This was a decision made by and certainly complied with by Netanyahu and his ambassador Dermer. They went into the U.S. Congress to take over U.S. foreign policy today from the president. It's a remarkable day when the leaders of the opposition in Congress allowed this to happen. Think it through. What country in the world would let a foreign leader come in and attempt to wrest from the president control of U.S. foreign policy? And that's what the applause was about today. That was what the battle of applauses was about. To take power away from the president.
I don't think Chris Matthews has ever been more right. I think his analysis there was spot on, and I think that goes to the core of what was grating on me yesterday. So we broke that speech down in 1,000 different ways, explained all the things that were wrong in it, whether it was the lies, it was the political games he was playing in Israel and inside the U.S. But really, the heart of the matter is, how dare you? I mean, come into our Congress and tell us the president's wrong and we should defy the president and give like a State of the Union speech and have these. And how dare you applies even more so to the Republicans?
Because he's invited. If he's invited by Boehner, he's going to come. Boehner's the man who invited him, so he's the one that we principally have to blame, I would assume.
To bring this guy in, to treat him like royalty, to give him over 50 standing ovations. I mean, it's a watershed moment. Netanyahu is overreached. And so it's obvious to the whole world who Washington works for, right? Because he hasn't overreached with Washington. He didn't work in changing our policy because President Obama is still the president and he's still continuing with negotiations. But in terms of winning over Washington, they love Netanyahu. Yeah. Netanyahu could say anything and they'd give him 1,000 standing ovations. And it's ugly. It's not right for any other foreign leader. It doesn't matter how close we are. It doesn't matter if it's a Canadian Prime Minister or the British Prime Minister. It doesn't matter to come over here and say, your president is wrong. You shouldn't listen to him. You should listen to me. And especially on a critical matter of peace negotiations, that are currently ongoing. Whether we're going to go in that direction or we're going to go more in the direction of war. It reeks, man. It's really disconcerting. And I think for a lot of people, even if they're Republicans, I'm talking about voters, I'm not talking about Washington, which is so corrupt. I think that they got a little uncomfortable looking at that going, there's something about that doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly something that doesn't feel typical. I mean, when have we had a foreign leader come in and receive this sort of applause and sort of like grandiosity? Like, look, if we have foreign leaders in and they give addresses, we should treat them with due respect, especially if they're an ally and a military ally of ours. But I've never, ever seen a foreign leader come and be treated the way that Netanyahu was. And it sort of weirds me out because Obama's been getting criticized by the right as not loving America, hating America, and all that. The Republican Party has been trying to pitch itself for all time as the party that actually loves America. And we've seen over just the last 12 months them basically being willing to say, Netanyahu, if you want to stay, you can just take over the White House there. And that's coming off the back of the love that Putin has been getting. And who actually does not like our system of government. Because it seems like the Republican Party is not a huge fan of it at this point.
Right. And King Abdullah of Jordan. Anyone who's authoritarian.
Yeah, that's a great example.
And in favor of war, they are absolutely enamored with. And there's one other aspect of it. Yes, other foreign leaders have come and spoken, and they've gotten anywhere from warm reception, et cetera. But never has there been a case where they directly oppose the policy of the president at the time on a critical issue like this. It's as if the French, and other people have used this analogy because it's an apt one. The French leader comes in right as we're voting on the Iraq war, and he gives us Democrats invite him in, and he gives a fiery speech saying George W. Bush is wrong. You should not go to war with Iraq. And Democrats standing ovation after standing ovation. No. Heads would have exploded. And by the way, rightfully so. I don't need the French leader to tell me what to do here in America. Yeah. It doesn't matter how good an ally you are. That's not how it's supposed to work. And it's also not good for Israel. It feeds the beast that lurks in the shadows of oh, they're running things. And so you think that...
Oh, you're saying for anti-Semites overseeing.
Absolutely. You think the anti-Semites didn't look at that speech and go, you see that? We always told you who was in charge and who was running things. So it's, I mean, I grew up with a lot of Jewish friends. There's a saying, is it good for the Jews, right? I looked at that speech and I thought, that is not good for the Jews.
I don't know, anti-Semites are rational people. But I will say, and I apologize if this was mentioned on the show yesterday, the one part of the speech that bothered me perhaps the most, because it was not just the most clear emotional manipulation and using what should be an extremely sensitive topic to win political points in the current day, but it was also so inexpertly delivered. So Netanyahu brought an actual Holocaust survivor to the speech and then pretended to have a private conversation with the man while giving the address. And he said, look, I can't promise to you that they will listen to me and they will support what we know needs to happen. I can only hope that they will. It was so phony. And there should be nothing more sensitive, more sacred than the experience of those who went through the Holocaust, the people still living who went through it. To use him as a prop in the background, as if they hadn't rehearsed that hundreds of times at that point. I know that in the State of the Union, they always plant people. I get that. Every speech, they plant people. But that was so crass and cynical and see-through, and it got a standing ovation. I found it to be disgusting.
John Stewart also made another good point. He said, when Netanyahu, he made two great points actually. When Netanyahu first landed, he said, I'm here on behalf of all Jews. And John Stewart was like, wait. Jews can't agree on anything. Okay? You don't speak for me. You don't speak for... I mean, have you ever been to a Seder dinner? Nobody speaks for the Jews, okay? We all disagree on everything, so you don't get to claim that mantle. It's not the right thing to do. And then he showed clips of Netanyahu speaking to Congress back in '96. And at the time, Netanyahu was saying Iran is 1 year away from having nuclear weapons. That was in 1996. So Stewart's, I mean, if you haven't watched it yet, it's a brilliant 9 minutes. And he said, this guy's been peddling this for the last at least minimum 2 decades. It might have been 3 decades, right? If you go back to some of his earlier statements. And every year, Iran doesn't get nuclear weapons, and they don't use them, and they don't wipe out America or Israel. And every year it comes and gives the same goddamn speech, and we all listen to it like, oh, wow, that's such a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. I think you have mentioned on the show recently that it's especially disconcerting when we find out that Mossad does not agree with Netanyahu. The intelligence agency is saying that he is providing misinformation about the capabilities, but he is not an intelligence officer. He is a politician. He's lobbying for a policy. And people need to bear that in mind when they listen to his speeches.
And remember, he is a neoconservative, so it's not like there's any subtlety here. We know what he is politically, right? So it's like Dick Cheney getting up and giving that speech. And Netanyahu, and John Stewart played this clip too, was in favor of the Iraq War and said the Iraq War would create a wonderful situation where Iran would have less power. In this speech, he said, now Iran has more power and has taken over Iraq.
Because of the chaos.
But you're the fucking knucklehead who told us to invade Iraq in the first place. So now you don't get to complain that Iran has taken over Iraq because of your dumbass policy and say, let's do it again, right? So Dick Cheney has no credibility in that, and Netanyahu has no credibility. All right, let's see. Yeah.
Take a break or Yarmouth?
Oh, yeah, no. Let's take a quick break here, guys. And we'll come back with, if you thought this was bad, wait till you see the Rand Paul stuff. We'll be right back.
The world is about to feel.
On the car, we're at 15,300. I have not seen 15,400 yet. Can I see 15,400? That's all I'm saying. All right. And you know that all month we're doing a NatureBox ad, naturebox.com/TYT. Get you a free box of snacks. I don't see how you can argue against a free box of snacks. That's all it is. Okay, you don't want to do anything else with it? God bless, that's your choice.
Yeah.
But go get some free snacks.
Yeah, you just get it and throw it out if you want.
Right.
Get it. Free.
Okay, I like the Asiago cheese crackers. Those are fun.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, I hear you.
Caramel Pop-Pops. You know, on the sweeter side.
I was looking through the list of snacks today.
Dried mango, perhaps.
So I'm going to order some for the house. And I was like, I think you get 5. I was like, only 5? Can I get more?
Oh, you can actually have them do more. By the way, can I just say really fast? So we did a video on Think Tank about it, and there were 1 or 2 people who said that we were selling out. And what they don't understand is I had a NatureBox account for months before we ever heard about the possibility of having a promotion.
See,
I already had NatureBox at that point.
It turns out you preemptively sold out. You went to NatureBox before they came over here.
I should have waited a little bit longer.
All right, let's go forward.
Okay, let's talk about it. The Benjamin Netanyahu address was 10% speaking, 90% clapping. In fact, there wasn't a chair in the room that got warm for even a minute, but that was not enough for some people. The Washington Post's Jennifer Rubin said that one man in particular had not been nearly as clappy as he should have been. That is Rand Paul. Here are some of the tweets that she sent out, culled from many tweets that she sent attacking Rand Paul. So he sent out saying something that he was in support of Israel. She said, then why would you seriously contemplate containment or propose a budget that cuts aid, including aid to Israel? She said he was unenthused. He was lifelessly applauding Bibi. Oops, almost like he's been faking his support for Israel until now. Ooh, with admirable retweet numbers there. She's doing pretty well for herself on Twitter. She said Paul's staff complains that he clapped plenty during the speech. Fair. Real questions should be about record and positions. But that is after multiple tweets saying that man had not clapped nearly enough.
Yeah, I thought maybe that she meant the position of his claps. Like, okay, fine, he did clap over 50 times, that's not bad, but not enthusiastically. And he did a little to the right when it should have
a little bit. You gotta cup it, keep the air in, so really it echoes throughout the room.
He didn't do enough of enthusiastic meathead claps, like this, oh, let's go, BB, let's go,
I would have liked to have seen a whoop, 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 whoop. That would have shown proper enthusiasm for foreign leaders.
No Arsenio Hall.
Not at all. And you know he watched that show back in the day.
Okay, look at how absurd this is, man. Look at how crazy this is. In America, if a United States senator does not enthusiastically enough applaud a foreign leader while in the midst of giving him a standing ovation over 50 times, not good enough. You didn't bow down enough to Israel's prime minister.
Yeah.
And these are the guys who ironically say, Obama gave a slight bow to like the Japanese leader or the Saudi leader, and of course Bush used to make out with the Saudi leader. They forgot that, but anyway, but like, how dare you bow to a foreign leader? They're like, why weren't you on the ground groveling in front of Netanyahu's feet?
Yeah, but can I take it slightly over the top? We have seen this in a very classic piece of literature. It was George Orwell's 1984. And during the 2-minute hate, you were worried that someone would look at you and you would not have enough passion and anger on your face, that they would judge you, and perhaps the government would come and seek you out and take you in for not having the right frame of mind. And that's what Jennifer Rubin is doing here to Rand Paul, a man who, I bet if you went down the list, 9 out of 10 positions specific to Israel, he shares her position. But it is not enough because he kind of like glanced down.
Maybe he didn't have enough coffee that morning. Besides which, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
How did she notice?
Okay, no. This is totalitarian. You're absolutely right about that. And by the way, it's not just a reference to literature. It just happened. It happened in North Korea when Kim Jong-il passed away. There was the weeping in the streets and the signs of grief. And that totalitarian government was looking at the tapes to see who didn't cry enough. Okay, and then there were consequences. We did the story on the show. There were consequences if you did not grieve enough when the dear leader passed away. In this case, our dear leader isn't even our leader. It's somebody else's leader. And if you don't grovel to him enough, if you're not like, yes, baby,
You should have to switch your pants halfway through the speech. They should have a short little break. You switch your pants, come back in fresh, ready for the conclusion.
yeah, this is unbelievable. I have never seen a country that has given over its sovereignty as much as we see in an instance like this. I mean, these are the guys who are constantly talking about, U.S. sovereignty! Unless, of course, it's Israel, in which case, screw our leader. Let's not only do every single thing that the other leader says, a foreign leader says, but we're watching you. And if you're not enthusiastic enough as you're kissing his hand, ring, then there will be consequences.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk briefly.
You know what? I'm sorry, one more thing. Okay. These are the same guys who say that political correctness is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine a better definition of political correctness. Can you imagine if the liberals said, while Obama was giving the State of the Union, some people were not clapping enthusiastically enough. We need you to clap harder. They would be like, totalitarian state propaganda, political correctness.
That's the sort of enthusiasm I want to see out of Rand Paul, which you just demonstrated right there. So we do have Rand Paul. He was asked about this by Brian Kilmeade, who's always just doing his best. And here is Rand Paul's response.
You don't have a monitor here, but we have some of your reaction during the speech, and you look less than thrilled hearing the speech. And as we roll it back, let me tell you what the National Review said. Rand Paul's outspoken views against muscular foreign policy and foreign aid. You look less than enthused while the Prime Minister spoke. What were you thinking?
You know, I think what's funny about it is that you have these gossipy websites who really demean themselves by putting stuff like that out. I gave the Prime Minister 50 standing ovations. I co-sponsored bringing him here. And on the day that I also decided to co-sponsor the corporate bill that says any final deal has to be approved, we have gossipy websites looking up at, the metric of how fast you clap. I mean, I think they demean themselves by putting that out.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. This is unreal, man. Now, I was going to say now Rand Paul actually doesn't agree with some of Netanyahu's positions, right? So Netanyahu doesn't believe in any negotiations because he literally offered no alternative. He said, "Here are my conditions for Iran," and one of the conditions was they have to generally stop being more aggressive. Okay, I'd like to see how they're going to check that off of Netanyahu's list.
Well, all Iranians have to clap more slowly.
Don't be too enthusiastic. Okay. Because apparently the Iranians have to check it by not the 6 countries they're negotiating with, China, Russia, etc. If you go to Netanyahu, we have climbed into a cave and we have not come out for a couple of years. Is that not aggressive enough? Okay, yes, check. Now you can go ahead. So there is no alternative. And even if they did everything that Netanyahu demanded, okay, he then didn't say okay, then this is the deal I would make with them. He never proposed an alternative. So Rand Paul doesn't really agree with that. Rand Paul believes that we should not be as warlike in the Middle East. Yeah. And he's a libertarian. That is the correct libertarian position.
And it's his general position worldwide, not necessarily specifically in that region. He thinks that in general we should be more hesitant to use military force.
And in my opinion, some of the things that Netanyahu said, the only reason Rand Paul is clapping is because if he didn't clap, look at what happens when he didn't clap enough, right? Imagine if he wasn't clapping at all. But if I was Rand Paul, I would have the courage of my convictions, and I'd be like, no, I agree with Israel on all of these different things, but I don't agree that we should start a conflict with Iran. Yeah. And if you don't like that, or another foreign leader doesn't like that, they can go ahead and #suck it. Okay? I'm not running to be the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister of Israel. I'm running for President of the United States of America.
Now, doesn't that suck? Oh, man. Now, doesn't that suck that it has to be like that because you're going to run for president on the Republican side? Because you have to make sure you're crazy enough to make it past the primaries. We know that's what they're setting up for. I'd be crazy enough to run for the primaries to be on the side 100% and show your Republican card, but then not be too crazy to try and win a general, which hasn't been able to really. It looks like it's getting harder and harder to do that. So you have to prove. No, I helped invite him. No, I really wanted him here. No, his balls were itching, so I scratched him for him. No, while Mitch McConnell was over here on his knees, I was picking him back up. You know what I mean? You have to demean yourself so far, don't you?
Yeah.
When you leave that interview, aren't you like, fuck, I feel like scum. I feel like nothing. I feel like less of a man right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because these are the guys who claim to be tough guys, right? They're the strong men, right? Yeah. But in reality, they're not pussies. That's why they like authoritarian governments, because they want to bow. They want to kneel down. Easier. So most of these people, they're not going to become the leader. They're going to go and serve a leader like Putin, King Abdullah, Netanyahu, whoever it might be, right? So their streak is not to be strong. Their streak, the conservative streak, is to be a pussy and to get on your fucking knees and beg and grovel and go, yes, dear leader, yes, do whatever you want to me. Take my freedom, take my liberty, take my sovereignty. Do whatever the fuck you want because I'm a pussy and I need a strong leader to whip me into shape.
Yeah, remember, these politicians, what do they spend all their time on? They're not strong men. They're not leaders. They're fundraisers in their free time. But yeah, so Netanyahu came and attacked pretty much every part of what Obama wants to do in the region. It did not offer much of an alternative, so he might well be the next Republican nominee for the presidency. But also, two things I noticed I thought were funny. One, the idea that the Washington Post is a gossipy website. That's just a funny little line they threw in. Yeah. And two, when he cited that I gave 50 standing ovations, that means he made an intern count how many standing ovations he gave, which that sucks. Intern, sorry about that, buddy.
That's fine. And Jennifer, if you're looking for someone who didn't clap, that would be me. Okay? So just so you know. And I don't have to listen to your fucking bullshit. So, and Rand Paul, if I was in that interview, I'd be like, I'm my own man and I get to make any fucking decision I like. Yeah. Okay? And next time, you piss ants can go ahead and watch my every move to see how a real man acts. Okay? Now go ahead and piss off. But it's not usually how politics works. All right. John, great hour, man. I appreciate it. Anna's coming with another phenomenal hour. That's how we roll, man. Can I see 15,400? We'll be right back.
That was a close one. I've been working with verbal commentators in their natural habitat all my life. Essentially grew up. No one's above making mistakes. Worst mistake I ever made is giving candy bars, potato chips, and other junk as food is to step in the office space. But that was before.
Guilt-free and delicious snacks from naturebox.com/TYT.
The mistake was disastrous. The local workers adapted to their hunger and irritability with a response well known in the junk food cubicle ecosystem called the afternoon slump. Yeah. Over there, snoring the biggest. Other CDARs, or cubicle dweller adaptive responses to the junk food stimulus, include office shenanigans and passive-aggressive emails. But I've learned from my mistakes, which is why I keep the kitchen stocked with healthy and delicious snack options like Sriracha roasted cashews, PB&J granola, and mini Belgian waffles. There's over 100 options to choose from. And it all gets delivered right to my door, so I don't have to think about it. And allows the workers can forage for food by their own watering hole in their natural habitat.
You know you're going to snack. Get smart about it. Go to naturebox.com/TYT for your free trial.
What's up, guys? I've worked at the Young Turks for nearly 8 years now, and even though I love news and politics, I've always been really passionate about fashion. So now all of a sudden, we're launching a fashion and lifestyle show here on the Young Turks network called Stylelock.
Taking pride in your appearance and dressing and hearing it from real people is the main message that you want to get across to you guys. So make sure to stay tuned. We're going to bring you fun segments and just looking at how you can basically further yourself and be self-confident in how you dress.
Hey, Hansberry.
Yeah, what would you think if you saw me walking in with a double breast?
I would think, whoa, he's looking quite dapper.
That's the second time you've impersonated my accent.
Hey, TYT Chicago. Alex here. We're coming for you. We're coming.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy!
United! We are! We are!
Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy.
96% of Americans want it.
When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Let's go get them, man. Up and at them. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com.
What's up? I'm Anna Kasparian, and you might wonder, what the hell is the point? Well, think of it as a news show with a twist. It's like a game of truth or dare, except we focus solely on the truth and ask our panelists some pretty interesting questions. Have you guys ever cheated or been cheated on? Have you had a near-death experience? Have you spent money on something that you knew was wrong? What would you do in the last week of your life? Each week, I'm joined by some of the smartest and most honest people around.
The worst person to run the country would be a person who wants to run the country.
Women are left out of conversations daily, especially in politics.
We love to delve deeper into the topics and have a good point to make about each story. Make your point. Make your point. Make your point.
Well, the legal team at VH1 could not have done a better job at covering their own asses while getting their contestants to show theirs.
The best part about the show is that we're not afraid to share personal stories, regardless of how scandalous or controversial they might be. Give them a vibrator. Okay, they'll be very, very happy.
When I was 13, I stole a car.
Damn! I don't know, officer. What was I doing? Bro, no. Bananas.
Blew my mind amazing.
Look, don't marry that crazy. You know, keep away from her.
Guys. Honestly, we let our guard down and we tell it like it is. Can't be that bad.
I think I'm going to get some backlash for this, but I'm going to be honest.
You're not supposed to cry after sex. And that was humiliating. In fact, I feel like I'm blushing right now.
You kind of are. It's amazing. I would be livid if someone was messing with my dog. Alright, you better stay the away from penguins.
If a hobbit decided to take a job as a longshoreman, I have his hand.
I'm also single. Ladies, this is progress, America. This is progress. I love it. Thanks so much for watching, and never be afraid to make your point.
Alright.
Checking out with you guys in the second hour here. I have a bit of a dramatic announcement. The Pontiac Grand Am, there is a new bid. $40,000. Oh, I'm getting word that we have a new bid. Hold. $45,100.
No, I'm concerned.
What the hell is the fail for? I can't imagine a bigger success. All right, now look. Here's the thing, guys. Oh, there it is.
Is that what he intended to play? Or
yeah, I think he intended to play that.
Yeah,
okay, all right. Okay. Now here's the thing. Are we unaware that it might not be legitimate bids? We're not unaware of that, right? So I have no idea. Because the number is so large. It's now absurd. It seems unbelievable, right? But we'll try to figure out how real it is, and if it's real, you guys are awesome. And remember, 100% of the proceeds go to Wolfpack. So wolf-pack.com. If in fact it sells for anywhere near $45,000, it'll be the most bananas thing that's ever happened.
Did I notify you guys I changed my name to Wolf-Pack?
No, but Meta World Peace agrees with you. Okay, it's not like it hasn't been done. No, it's not JR. It's not. All right, Anna, go.
All right. A New Jersey police officer is facing a lawsuit that alleges that he raped a woman repeatedly as a way of blackmailing her. This is involving a police officer that we have talked about on the show before, involving a possible case of police brutality. His name is Officer Raheem Days, and the woman filing the lawsuit against him is Shakira Brown. And this is what she claims in the suit. She claims that Days told her that she would be arrested unless they could work something out. Now, he claimed that she matched the identity of someone that they were looking for, the description of an alleged shoplifter, and of course, she was afraid when the cops said that to her because she stands to lose quite a bit if she does get prosecuted. Brown states that she pleaded that she had children and could not spend time in jail. Days allegedly said that I guess we're going to have to handle this in an adult manner. At that point, they exchanged information, and the suit states that Days had Brown put her cell phone number into his phone and told her he would call her. She went home where about 8 p.m. Days reportedly called her to arrange a meeting. Things got really bad from there. Do you want to jump in before I continue?
Yeah, look, this is why the cops have an extra duty. See, we've given them an enormous amount of power. They get to carry guns around, they get to shoot people, and they get to arrest people, which plays with their lives. So when you get these arguments that, cops have a tough job, they have a risky job, and hence we should give them more leeway. No. yes, there's no question that they can have a tough job and they have extra responsibility, but that does not mean you give them more leeway because power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you have a situation where someone has a ton of power, you have to make sure that that power is strictly guarded, because if you don't, stuff like this happens.
So now let me give you the details of what happened in the alleged sexual encounters. So Days allegedly pulled up near her home in his police cruiser and asked her to give him a blowjob. They later had sex at his home and at a nearby hotel, and the suit alleges Days continued to threaten her. So she gave him what he wanted, right? Which, look, she shouldn't have done, but she was, if this is true, if these allegations are true, she was coerced into doing this, right? It was blackmail. It wasn't enough. She had sex with him. He wanted more. And so at one point, she finally talked to a lieutenant about it and confessed about what happened and was hoping that she would get some, payback for what was going on. But here's what happened. Brown claims one encounter was at a house in Bridgeton Village. She allegedly told Days she would no longer have sex with him, but gave in when he told her that she had a no-bail warrant issued for her arrest.
I mean, this is classic coercion. It doesn't get any more blackmail and coercion than this. So, I resist the arguments that, sometimes men are in a more powerful position, whether it's a professor or, an executive or something, and that by its definition, it's coercive. Okay. No. This is coercive, okay? When you say, I will put you in prison and destroy your life unless you have sex with me. And, you say she shouldn't have had the sex. I mean, he shouldn't have done that, right?
No, I know.
No, I know.
That wasn't my intention, by the way. I wasn't trying to blame the victim here. She is 100% the victim. She should face absolutely no punishment. He's the person who should, first of all, be investigated, and if he's found guilty, he should be put away in prison. I'm not even having a discussion about him losing his job. There he is right there. He also recently made news because he was involved in a police shooting. He shot and killed a man by the name of Jeremy C. Reed while he had his hands up. There was surveillance footage of that, and we actually brought the surveillance footage back so you guys can take a look at it for yourself. That case is under investigation. He is suspended, but nonetheless, take a look.
Hey, how y'all doing? How you doing? Good. Hey, Officer Days, Bristol Police. The reason I'm pulling you over, you went right through that stop sign back there. Where at? Right on South Pine Street. Hey, you got a driver's license?
Yeah, I got my driver's license.
What's up, man? Do you want to grab for me?
Stop.
No. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. Get him out the car, Raj. We got a gun in this glove compartment. Don't move. Don't move. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Don't move. Don't move. I'm telling you, I'm gonna shoot you. You're gonna be dead. I'm telling you. You reach for something, you're gonna be dead. I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you. Keep your hands right there. Hey, Jerome, you reach for something, you're gonna be dead. He's reaching. Show me your hands. No, you're not. Don't move. Don't move.
So the person who was shot and killed was a person in the passenger side of the car, and there was allegedly a gun in the glove compartment, and that he had reached for the gun, which is why the police officer shot. To be completely honest with you, you can't really tell from that surveillance. So
yeah, I mean, the driver's got his hands up as much as any human being could ever have their hands up. Obviously, you can't tell what's happening in the passenger seat. But look, when you combine the two stories, it becomes a little bit more damning for him. Now, but the case will not combine the two stories. I understand that. So these will be treated as two separate incidents, and they will not affect one another. And so, and maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they informs you about his judgment, right, and how he acts. But in the actual court proceedings, those things will not affect one another. And so, it's all a matter of if she has some degree of evidence that this has happened, right?
Well, I mean, if she's alleging that he had her put her number in his phone, I mean, if the NSA can check the phone records of every single American, I'm pretty sure investigators can take a look at his phone records and see who he called, who he communicated with. I think it would be easy to piece together evidence if she's telling the truth in this story.
Right.
So.
The flip side is he's immediately going to say it was consensual, and that's why it's so hard to prove sexual assault, rape, or in this case, blackmail. Right. And we'll have to have the courts, sort it out. But the bottom line is the most important part is we have to be really, really careful with people we give tremendous power to.
Yeah. All right, well, we go from a disastrous story to a good story. All right? It doesn't start off good, but it ends good. A 27-year-old inmate at Rikers Island somehow managed to sneak his way into a watch post at the prison and proceed to sexually assault a female corrections officer. Now, as that was happening, there were other inmates that saw what was going down, and they actually took it upon themselves to save her from the sexual assault. Now, according to witnesses that saw the event, during the attack, Young, who is 5'9" and weighs 290 pounds, pulled down his pants and began masturbating while choking the officer. He also managed to drag her into a bathroom where he allegedly took off her sweater and proceeded to sexually assault her. He put his lips on her lips, and it was obviously a very scary ordeal for the woman who has not been identified at this point. So one of the skinny inmates managed to slip through an opening into the area that they were in and somehow get this guy off the female corrections officer. And then the other inmates called other authorities to come and help with the situation. So thankfully it didn't go too far. But I think stories like this are important, right? Because a lot of people are under the assumption or the impression that all inmates are terrible people. They're all in there for bad reasons. And, if they're treated poorly, who cares? They broke the law and they deserve bad things. No, a lot of these people are empathetic. They are good people. A lot of these people are in there for nonviolent offenses. So I like that the story came out and you have an example of inmates going out of their way to help a corrections officer.
Now, of course, Raleek Young, who's the guy who allegedly did this, is also a terrible guy.
Yes.
And so are some inmates terrible? Of course they are, right? And there's a reason why some of them are in the position that they're in. But there's an extra bit of irony here. So I often wonder why there's so much rape in prison, why that's allowed. What a weird thing, like where we've decided, rape is completely unacceptable, unless you're in prison, in which case the guards look the other way and who gives a shit, just rape anybody you like, right? I just find it mind-blowing that we live in a country that routinely allows that. But look at this. So the guards often look the other way and allow the inmates to be raped. But when it's a guard being raped, the inmates are actually more decent. And they stepped up and they didn't allow it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never really thought about it that way. But the fact that rape is allowed in prison just shows you how much our society just doesn't care about inmates at all, right? Like, it's not about rehabilitating them. These are people that are seen as throwaways, so we don't care about making them better people so they come back to society and are productive members of it. We just care about punitive actions against their crimes. That's it.
Yep. Well, God bless them for destroying stereotypes there, and my guess is that the guard there is enormously thankful. And by the way, I hope that that they're recognized for their actions. You want to talk about time off for good behavior?
That's definitely good behavior.
Doesn't get any better behavior than this.
By the way, I should also note that the suspect in this case is being prosecuted for his new crimes. There was some question as to whether or not he would be prosecuted for them. But yes, he will be. For attempted rape, you guys get the picture. He's actually serving time in prison and has been serving time in prison since 2007 because he raped someone under the age of 14.
Yeah, look, there are things that go bump in the night. And that's why I'm somewhere between our prison system, which is so vicious and ridiculous, and Norway's prison system, where that guy would get to complain that he doesn't have
the latest PlayStation.
Right, the latest video games. So, all right, what's next?
All right. It's been a fun week when it comes to those who are against marijuana legalization. Lots of crazy people are saying crazy things when it comes to prohibition and how it's actually a good thing. Now, the NYPD commissioner, Bill Bratton, is no exception. Recently, he was talking about a tiny, slight uptick in violent crime in New York City. and he blamed the violent crime on marijuana legalization in places like Colorado. So let me tell you exactly what went down. Now, it was all centered on the issue of homicides. Apparently, there have been 45 homicides at this point last year. However, this year there have been 54, so people are freaking out. They're like, whoa, uptick in violent crime, what's causing it? And Bill Bratton's like, duh, it's the weed. Let me give you his statement. He didn't say it like that. He said, the seemingly innocent drug that's been legalized around the country, in this city, people are killing each other over marijuana, more so than anything that we ever had to deal with in the 80s and 90s with heroin and cocaine. In some instances, it's a causal factor, but it's an influence in almost everything that we do here. Okay, so stop right there. First of all, marijuana does not make you violent, okay? That's just fact, okay? I deal with facts, I deal with science. Has there been violence related to marijuana? Possibly. There could be. And what he was specifically talking about was these, like, rip-off wars, right? So someone owes someone marijuana, or someone needs to pay for the marijuana, but they haven't paid. So as a result, they kill each other. That stuff goes down when you have a black market for marijuana, right? So legalizing it in a way where people can get their hands on it in a legal way, they don't have to go to drug dealers, actually brings the crime down, Mr. Bratton. I mean, come on.
Amen. So, three things that are absurd about this statement. Yeah, marijuana is causing homicides all over the city. On its face, it's absurd. Second of all, marijuana legalized in Colorado and Washington. Okay, I mean, how many hundreds or thousands of miles away are those states? What the fuck are you talking about? It's crazy. And then number three, you said in the statement that it's because of the wars related to marijuana, and those wars happen because it's illegal. I mean, it's a stunning lack of logic.
When was the last time someone killed another individual because they owed money for alcohol? Right?
Oh, another great point. Hey, can I get an amen in here?
Amen.
Okay. Actually, we're doing amen for you.
Oh.
Okay, amen.
I can amen myself, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Now, the Washington Post did really great coverage on this story, and they actually did bring up some numbers. So, first of all, this uptick in violent crime is not that big of a deal because we're looking at an 8-week period. Okay, that's not enough time for you to draw any conclusions about anything. But according to the Washington Post, even if this year's uptick holds through December, New York would end the year with only 383 murders. I shouldn't say only, that's still a lot of murders. But the city had 2,245 murders in 1990. Remember, Bill Bratton said this is more serious than anything we had to deal with in the 80s and 90s. Wrong again, Bill. So, that's just going down.
Okay. All right, well, I have nothing to add to your excellent commentary on that.
All right, well, you know what we should do? We should take a break, and then I'm going to tell you how your sex toys are getting hacked.
Oh, could be good. Anna with you. There's a reason why I'm not reading you any tweets today, because my tweeter machine, otherwise known as an iPad, is not working right now. So we'll try to get that fixed for you tomorrow. Now, I was going to tell you about the Jimmy Dore show that's live here on Saturday. Wrong. Not telling you about that. Sold out. Gone. Reached capacity. I don't even know we were charging on that. But anyway, it's still, the room is now full. Sorry. Now, don't miss your other opportunities. Austin, we're going to be there. We're going to be at Alamo Draft House. And that was, okay, if we were Turkish, we'd have to pull each other's hair.
What?
So, like, oh, that means like I'm better looking than you or some stupid thing like that.
Well, everyone knows that.
Don't make me pull your hair. Okay. Sort of superstition. Anyway, so go to TYTnetwork.com and you'll see a link for that. And we'll come see us in Austin, okay? And that's, by the way, the screening of Mad as Hell. You get to see Mad as Hell and hang out. I think that's what I'm not going to promote the car anymore, because we got to confirm whether those numbers are real.
Okay.
Okay. God bless your hearts. Okay, whoa.
All right. Sex toys have become much more sophisticated than your regular vibrator or dildo. Now, with technology and the internet, many people are using apps on their mobile phones in order to manipulate certain sex toys remotely. And as a result, they have the potential to get hacked, and that could be disastrous. Now, Motherboard on Vice did a really interesting investigative report on this, and they talked to people who are experts in this field to figure out whether or not it's actually true that your smart sex toys can get hacked. And they say, absolutely. So how the hell does it happen, and why should you care? Does this mean that they're just going to make the vibrator vibrate more aggressively? No, there are serious issues involved, especially when it comes to your privacy. So here's what they report. Most internet-connected devices require an app to control them and online registration with the company, and those are likely to be the weakest links, right? So you register online, and you're already sharing some personal information. The apps, of course, have access to your photos and your videos and all of that. And if you are manipulating a vibrator remotely, you're likely to use video capabilities in order to communicate with one another. And those videos can be stored on your phone, and hackers can somehow access those videos and use them to possibly blackmail you. So according to one expert, Ken Monroe, he says, imagine you're having a teledildonic. I love that.
Yeah, this is like one of the greatest words ever.
I know. Imagine you're having
it's better than buggery.
I know. Imagine you're having a teledildonic session, and there was video, and that was written to the same external storage area as temporary files. Temporary files are overwritten, but not completely, not always, and not always completely. Damn.
Okay. First of all, I'm not sure you should be having a teledildonic session.
Why not? I mean, if you're having a long-term, or not long-term, but long-distance relationship, I can see why people are trying to get frisky.
I know. There's no way that I trust that it's not going to be hacked. No way! If somebody says, okay, let's take your clothes off on video and do goofy things. I'm like, wrong again, Bob. Okay? And look, I know they can hack into everything now. Look, there's a story out of the Hill. Here are the things they can hack into. Cars, okay, copy machines. So you think, like, oh, no big deal, I'm copying something? Wrong. Some of the new copy machines store that information and can be hacked into.
And they have wireless capabilities, which means that they can be hacked into. It's very easy to do it.
Medical devices. So
like a pacemaker?
That's right. And your insulin injections. They could
increase your insulin to the point where you die.
Right. That's super scary, man. That's I know one of those was in Homeland, but it's real. I mean, I think they have to be within 15 feet of you, but who would know? 15 feet of you, they're behind you, insulin, gone. Okay? You know, like Dick Cheney has like 7 things in his heart, right? So, my God, they got to be really careful with him. Then toys, as Anna's referring to, and TVs. And, you know, the webcams in your TVs. So it's hard not to live in a state of paranoia because it's not paranoid. We know the government has hacked into things before. We know that, for example, the UK government, they have all these nude pictures and nude videos of British citizens because they tapped into their webcams. And what do people do on webcams? They do teledildonic sessions.
Right.
Okay?
It sucks. So it's unfortunate. So yes, there's the government component of it, which absolutely angers and enrages me. And of course, it can be used for blackmail. And then there's just regular hackers that have nothing better to do. And of course, they want to steal your money and whatever. They want to find ways to blackmail you in that regard. But I hate knowing that there is a group of people out there that spend all their time trying to figure out how to hack into your sex toys and into your coffee machines and all these things just to get your personal information and make your life a living hell. It sucks. It sucks. Like, let people play with their teledildonics in peace. Like, why is this something that you want to ruin for society?
Yeah. And in this case, like in other cases, you're supposed to have the cops, the government, looking out for you. You got a fire in your house, the fire department's going to come and they're going to put out the fire, right? That's great. That's why we pay taxes. In this case, the government's oftentimes worse than the hackers. So there's you got to watch out for both of them, which really sucks. And when's the last time you heard of a government, unless it's a mega celebrity, chasing down someone who hacked in a specific person's account, took their money or took their nude pictures, and put that person in prison? Man, it doesn't happen that often. Okay, I mean, we got all those untested rape kits all across the country, let alone figuring out who the hacker is that went after you. So it is massively frustrating. But then, of course, there is a slightly funny part to this story, which is if you hacked into somebody's dildo, what would you do with it?
Yeah, it's not about hacking into the dildo.
Like, who's doing harder?
Sex harder. Yeah,
like, whoa.
I think that's...
Somebody's hacked into this thing. It's going too hard.
You know, I bet that there are hackers out there that want to do that. Like, they're like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I manipulated the vibrator too?
Right.
Which, I mean, that could be exciting for all parties. I don't know.
Ooh, remote control vibrators, as long as it's consensual, right?
No, that totally exists already.
Oh, is that? Oh.
So we did a story about that on The Point, which you guys should check out. So what exactly is The Point? Anyway, we talked about a vibrator that is manipulated through an app. So, like, let's say I have a vibrator. My boyfriend downloads the app on his phone, and then, like, let's say we're far away from one another, but we want to have some fun. He can, like, manipulate it through his phone. And so we talked about it, and they actually sent me one, which I thought was hilarious.
Okay, that one's totally wired. Don't ever use it.
No, of course I'm not going to use it.
Okay, it's going to record everything. Let's just keep it real. And now that you explain what it does, it's totally uninteresting. First of all, it's going to be hard. You're not going to be able to get it right.
You sound like you'd be a lot of fun in that.
Okay.
No, it sounds like it's too hard to hear about it.
Okay, who's going to go all the way down there? Second of all, wait, what was the second of all? Oh, yeah, I mean, this is the exact teledildonic thing that they're going to tap into. So, no way that I'm going to let somebody control something from, an app. Right. Are you crazy?
And let's say that the sex toy requires two individuals to have an app. Like, now you're extra at risk because, I mean, that means that both people could get hacked into, right? You double your chances.
Picturing a double dogger. And they're like, are you doing that? Wait a minute, are you doing this? Oh my god, I think we've been hacked into!
Oh man, we spent way too much time on that story. Alright, let's move on.
Wrong again, Bob. I also like the idea of the...
No, we're not done with it.
No, we're not done.
Keep going.
Like the boyfriend, letting you know that he's around for fun play by just buzzing the vibrator. Like, it's in your drawer. And he gets on the app and it's like, bzz, bzz.
It's like an alarm clock.
It's like an alarm clock. Like, ooh, it's time for that. Bzz, bzz.
That's actually a genius idea. I like that.
Always thinking here. Yeah. Okay, always trying to help with the teledildonics.
All right. In the land of online dating, a story broke this week indicating that Tinder is going to have a paid version of the app. If you are 29 years or younger, you only pay $9.99, but if you're 30 or older, you pay $20 a month for the app, or $19.99, as if that makes any difference. Well, there's one man in New York who didn't need Tinder to hook up. In fact, he did it the old-fashioned way. He didn't go to bars, he didn't go to clubs, he didn't go to restaurants. The way he picked up on women is he literally put out flyers, and then the women allegedly just came flocking to him. Now, this is a story about Dan Carino. He's an older gentleman. He's about 50 years old. And last year, he realized that he was feeling a little lonely, and he wanted female companionship. Now, he says it's really hard to find marriage material in New York City. He finds a lot of people that are fun to date, but no one he'd want to marry. So he thought, look, why don't I put out some flyers saying that I'm looking for a serious relationship? And then, boom. He claims that he started getting hundreds of calls and text messages a day, so many that he had a hard time keeping up. He had a little bit of help from the media, though. CBS picked the story up, they gave him a little publicity, and then he says that women just came flocking to him. So, reporters just recently caught up with him to see how the search or the hunt for a girlfriend is going. And he says, it's been going great. I've had hookups with 118 girls, but the dating is a lot more than that. So he says it's going great because he's getting laid, but he has not found...
Brother. Can I get an amen?
He has not found a girlfriend yet.
Who would want a girlfriend if you're getting laid by 118 different girls?
Who wants a girlfriend?
No, he doesn't. Not anymore. He was looking for a girlfriend in the first place. Once he found 118 of them, he didn't want to... You think he couldn't settle down with one out of the 118?
All right.
No, he found a pot of gold. Go get him, brother. Don't slow down.
So he has actually started working on a documentary on this regarding...
Now he's getting paid off it. This guy's a genius.
He has written a short story about it involving a 25-year-old he had a date with.
Oh.
And I just... Come on, women. Like, really? Okay, but anyway...
Why not? Why not? Look, first of all, here's what I have to say about this guy.
But that's all it's like. Like, gets interviewed by CBS once, and women are like, "Oh my God, my panties are wet. I want to have sex with him."
Apparently.
Wow.
I mean, if what he's saying is true,
like whatever you guys want, that's totally fine. I mean, he's super judgmental right now, but there's something about this story that rubbed me the wrong way. I don't really believe
I would think there was something that rubbed him the right way.
I don't necessarily believe it, and I don't know if he was genuinely looking for a relationship to begin with. Like, this guy is an actor, okay?
Oh.
He's looking for a little attention, and this gave him attention, and look, we're feeding into it, so...
No, I'm nearly certain as to how this went down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, he was having a little bit of trouble, and yes, he thought, maybe it's a nice PR gimmick. I don't know, maybe he even knows somebody at CBS. You know, I don't know. That, I'm speculating, right? But in the beginning, he's like, yeah, I want a girlfriend. These apps are hard to figure out. Whatever. It's not working for me. I don't have a six-pack, right? He puts this out. And then when he got a good response, he does what any guy would. Why stop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd like a girlfriend. Unless I had 118 of them.
Okay.
Okay. And then you don't have to stay with any of them. There's no downsides. And you just keep going. Can I see 1,000?
Oh,
you see what I'm saying? Now, why would you stop?
Let me give you some of his quotes. He says, I was getting 200 to 300 calls per day. I couldn't get back to everybody. It was difficult. I've got back to everybody by now. There's been over 8,000 phone calls. I posted well over 40,000 flyers. I try to keep it below 14th Street, although I do go to Midtown sometimes. I don't know. There's something about the story that just makes me question him and his allegations.
Allegations against himself.
Okay, so here's another part of the story that I thought was hilarious. So he's 50 years old, right? But he's very specific about what he's looking for, although he claims he is not picky. Now, here's his description of what he wants. He wants a nice human woman as opposed to a goat woman that is aged 25 to 37 and is marriage material and wants a family. Also, this woman should be available every day or every other day to go walking or unplanned events. Okay.
I love the specificity of that.
Make yourself super available to me, and everything should be fine. Now, the 25 to 37 number is hilarious because he's 50, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what's wrong with a 45-year-old? Like, no, too
sorry,
old.
not good enough. He's got a lot of choices there.
So he was talking about how he has been approached by women in their 50s, and he's like, that's not cool.
Oh,
You're 50! You're 50! I think that's why the story rubs me wrong.
That's what it is. It's not that it's fishy, saying that because of that you hate the guy.
I don't hate him. I question him.
Okay. You have been questioned, mister. You have been questioned. Okay. Now, that's not cool to say that 50-year-olds shouldn't come up to. Anybody can come up to. What the hell, man?
I might go out to coffee with him, but I ain't sleeping with him.
Okay. You got to bring it down, dude. Okay. Like, if all this is true, he's pushing his luck. Because that's not good PR.
Yeah.
That's going to turn off a lot of women like you, who are in the 25 to 37 bracket.
Yeah.
But instead of endearing him to those women, it's going to alienate him. So you were doing well, man. Don't fix it if it ain't broke.
By the way, the one thing that I will say is, yeah, I'm sure that he's attracted to younger women, but he's also looking for a family. So that's probably one of the reasons why he's looking for the 25 to 37 age range. No. I mean, like, that could play a role. I know that the bigger thing is that you want someone who's young and hot, right? But, I mean, it's harder to have a baby when you're in your 40s. It is what it is.
In an incredibly ironic turn of events, this story has made me somewhat glad that I'm already married. You know why?
You weren't glad before, but now all of a sudden.
No, I'm saying in this context. I'm very glad in other regards.
Right.
But, like, I keep thinking, oh man, I missed out. I missed out on Tinder. I missed out on the days of crazy free sex. Everybody's going nuts, yada yada, right? But if I was single, I couldn't do anything else. Apparently, the sex is now everywhere. So I'd be posting flyers. I'm on Tinder. I'm on Match. I'm on every website. I'd be like, yeah, what's up, man? There'd be like naked pictures of me all over town. I couldn't get anything done. All I'd be doing is trying to get to 190. Can I see 120? Can I see 120?
I don't believe him. I don't believe that he had 118 hookups. I just don't. I think he's making a lot of this up.
Okay, and you might be right. And that would be a bit of a downer because the thing that the actor part is it's convenient PR. He's an actor. So there is something, and that's a lot of folks, man. Just based on flyers.
Yeah.
So I hear you on that. And if it turns out he's lying, then all men are going to hate him because we were looking out for you, brother. We were on your side. We wanted you to succeed. And if you were kind of a dick about it, that sucks. That's not cool.
That's not cool.
Yeah. It's cool to have sex with 180 girls. It's not cool to lie about it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Why not the most reasonable man in America?
So reasonable. All right. Just a fun story before we go to break, and then when we come back, I actually have a really serious story for you guys. What do women find attractive in men? There have been a number of studies on this very specific topic, right? Is it bearded men? Is it short men, tall men, dark, handsome man?
Turkish.
Whatever. No, they didn't address Turkish men at all in any of these studies. But nonetheless, what they did look at included things like facial hair, height, whether or not the man is willing to take on some household duties, what kind of household duties makes a man attractive versus unattractive. Lots of really interesting things come out from all these different studies. So Cosmopolitan actually compiled a list of these things, and I thought it was fascinating to say the least, right? And so I want us to discuss these because I found a lot of these studies, or the findings from these studies, to be surprising. So one of the things that women tend to find more attractive, and this is based on surveys, and the respondents said the following, that full bearded men may be perceived as better fathers who can protect and invest in offspring.
Me have beard, me protect you and offspring.
Insane. I like some facial hair.
I like that.
Yeah, so we have talked about that on the Young Turks before. But there are other things. So an NYU study found that as far as relationships go, the shorter the partner, the sweeter the juice.
What?
Yeah, I don't believe it either. Dalton Conley, a sociologist at the university, and Abigail Weitzman, a PhD candidate, combed through data on 5,000 families culled from nearly 50 years of research and concluded that the vertically challenged, that is not the right way to describe them, do more housework, are less likely to get divorced, and even own a greater portion of household income.
Well, okay, many things. First of all, sweeter the juice is a term I object to in this context. Okay. Second of all, yeah, all those things happen. They get divorced less, but there might be a lot of reasons for that. It might be that they're trying harder because they're vertically challenged.
Here's what they found. They found correlation. That doesn't mean much, right? But I just still think it's interesting that this trend was visible based on
it doesn't mean that they're necessarily more desirable. And you remember I had that epiphany recently where I finally figured out what women are into, tall guys.
You just realized that.
Yeah. And remember at your brother's wedding when with your boyfriend, right? Like people all my life I've seen like guys good looking, whatever. Then there's another guy who's good looking, and one guy gets all the attention. I'm like, what is it? And then Knucklehead Cenk, 45 years later, figured out, oh, that dude is tall. That's why all the girls are like, oh my God, what is it? Sweeter than dude.
He's also charismatic and well built.
I'm not talking about your boyfriend. Please don't bore me. Okay. I'm talking about in general. Okay. All right, what's next?
So research has also shown that for a long-lasting relationship, it's preferable for the men to be less attractive than the woman. So this is fascinating. This is probably the most interesting thing that I read because I was like, why? Why does the woman have to be more attractive than the man? It's because, generally speaking, right, and this is not true of all men, men tend to care about looks more than women do, right? And so a woman's going to look to things like, oh, is he smart? Is he funny? Is he going to be a good husband, a good provider, blah, 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 right? Whereas the man's like, is she hot? And they care about other things too, of course. But if a man ends up dating or is married to a woman that he perceives to be more attractive than him, then he feels like he struck it rich, right? So he's really got to do everything he can to make that relationship work because he doesn't want to lose her.
Oh, interesting.
So that's the hypothesis behind it. I don't know whether or not it really holds true, but I think it's an interesting one.
Whereas if he's more attractive than her, he's like, I mean, what's the downside? I'll probably get somebody hotter anyway if this doesn't work out.
Bingo.
Fascinating. Okay, none of these things are definitive, of course,
No,
but it's an interesting.
Fun. Okay, we're just trying to spark a conversation.
Okay.
Finally, a professor at the University of Alberta surveyed nearly 3,000 people to find that teenagers who experienced rocky relationships with their parents had more romantic problems later in life. So if you had a turbulent childhood, you're likely to have a turbulent marriage as well.
The most logical thing I've ever heard, because you grew up thinking that that was the standard relationship. So when you have a relationship of your own, that's what you do.
Yeah. So I love all this stuff. Again, please take it with a grain of salt. But one other study that we did talk about on the Young Turks in the past talked about couples who smoke marijuana together. And if couples smoke marijuana together, they're less likely to engage in domestic violence.
Yeah, of course, because they're high. Which apparently would be news to Bill Bradford.
Right. Bill Bradford would be like, they're going to kill each other.
They're going to have a marijuana war in the house.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine. They're going to chill out. Everything's going to be good. Okay, quick break.
Let's
come back with one serious but important story when we return. All right, back on the air, George Shinganano. If the bid on the Pontiac is real, it would be amazing, man. It'll be amazing. So we had 45,100 now. To all the non-believers.
That's so crazy.
To all the non-believers, especially you, Tom Jackson. Okay.
I have some used stuff that I can sell. If you guys are interested.
I'm telling you,
I'll sell some of my clothes.
So many people say, "Oh, you're not gonna get a public house with another."
Damn.
I'm like, no,
you're showing them.
No, because people want to help Wolfpack, you know, and it's a cool car and it's a cool part of the show, and okay, God, I hope it's real. It'll suck if it's not real. Okay, anyway, tinyurl.com/jankscar, and I see 100,000. Okay, no, only bid if it's real, and it'd be great if you guys gave that money to Wolfpack. Wolf-pack.com. Even if you can't give 45,000, it's okay. You can go give them $100 right now. Everything helps. Okay. Good news on that soon, I hope. Okay, now, member shout-outs. Chris Langtot. We got the iPad working a little bit. We don't have the tweets, but I have the members. Chris Langtot is member number 1529. And member number 903 is Martin Soto. Okay. And special announcement. We have a new executive producer. We have these different levels of membership on the website, tytnetwork.com/subscribe, right? That's how you become a member of the Young Turks. That's how you get the post game we're about to do. That's how you get the whole show. Tony Magnolia. Tony Magnolia is the new executive producer. Now, why we call them executive producers? Because they help contribute to the show. Every quarter, I have a call with all the EPs. I had one already, and we had a conversation with. They gave notes on what they like in the show, what they don't like in the show, how we can improve the show.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Now, it's a decent amount of money, so obviously no pressure. But if you like it and you want to do it, it's a pretty cool thing.
Nice.
Okay, tytnetwork.com/subscribe. All right, Casper, what's that?
All right. Many still believe in witchcraft in certain parts of Africa, and it could have disastrous ramifications for certain groups of people. Now, recently, an albino toddler was found killed as a result of witchcraft. This was Johanna Bahati, and according to reports, the mutilated body of an albino toddler has been found in Tanzania with his limbs hacked off, the latest such killing for body parts for witchcraft. Police finding the body on Tuesday afternoon in a forest area close to his home. So what will often happen is those who believe in witchcraft will use the limbs or the body parts of albino individuals in witchcraft ceremonies because they believe that it could bring good luck. For instance, in some cases, political opponents in the area will rely on witchcraft in order to bring them good luck in elections. And so it's a big issue within the society because it's not just people living in rural parts, especially when you have politicians who believe in this kind of stuff. It's almost as if they're advocating for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so a couple of notes here. Number one, the messages that you put out make a difference. You put out messages of discrimination, hate, and you get back hate, and you get back a kid who is chopped to pieces, right? So now it's true in a story we did yesterday about the culture of rape in India, right? People say, oh, well, she had it coming, and next thing you know, the guy who raped her says she had it coming, right? So now the second part of this is as bad as it gets. But it's interesting. We have no geopolitical interest in Tanzania, so of course we're not going to do anything about it, right? Now, if you substitute Muslim for witchcraft, and you substitute another reason why somebody would be getting dismembered, etc., we go to war, right? Now, does anybody think that going to war against Tanzania would solve this issue?
No, of course not.
So that's why I bring this up. I mean, isn't that interesting? Like, that would be absurd, right? It'd be absurd. Like, why don't we go bomb Tanzania? You'd be like, wait, no, you're going to kill a lot of innocent people. What are you doing? Don't go just randomly bombing the country, right? Even if you're trying to get the people who did witchcraft, there's got to be a better way than just dropping bombs from the sky. But when we say it about Muslims in Iraq, Syria, etc., people go, oh yeah, obviously bomb away.
And look, I think a lot of that is fueled by high-profile cases where, extremists do things like shoot and kill innocent individuals that work for media companies that they disagree with, right? But stories like this don't get as much play. There's no question about that. And so that's part of media propaganda. When the media decides to focus on one demographic and completely ignore a different demographic. And the thing is, when you really look at the United States, right, what is the one thing that religious people fear the most? Education. They're always talking about how education is indoctrinating the youth because the more educated you are, the less likely you are to be a fundamentalist, to believe in religion in the fundamental form. And so the best way to combat issues like this is education, right? It's not going to war. It's spreading the truth about, science and why the world is the way it is, using evidence-based, logic-based information to convince people that what they're doing in Tanzania is absolutely insane.
Yeah. And it's part of the local culture, and I've always said this, I believe it's some cultures have some parts that are toxic, okay? But the answer isn't always violence, right? So now what they're doing is hideous violence to these poor kids, right? But we got to be smart in how we combat that. So of course I agree with Anna. You have the long-term strategy of education, and then the short-term, if you want to do incentives for the government to take action and to find at the local level the particular people who are doing this, and set an example by putting them in prison and saying this is not right, doing an education campaign in the short term as well as the long term.
Yeah.
See, that would be a smart way to handle that. And I hope that they do that in this case, although there isn't a great indication that they're making a concerted effort.
Right.
But wouldn't it be great if we could be smart in all instances?
Yeah.
And, treat some of the other issues that are also horrific in our world in the same way, instead of just saying, oh, no, the answer is always war.
Well, the answer is always war when there are people that stand to make a lot of money through going to war. So if that incentive is there, if that profit motive is there, we're not going to go the logical route. We're going to go the violent route.
And Anna makes another great point about the media. I mean, if they put these kids' pictures up every single day in the media and said, look at what's happening, look at the people, that are practicing witchcraft, there'd be a lot more momentum to do something, right? And there'd be an outcry. I mean, right now there's a new poll out saying that 62% of Americans want ground troops to fight ISIS. Why? Because every day, look at ISIS, look at they're dismembering people, they're chopping people's heads off, right? If you did that with this, who knows, maybe we'd get ground troops in Tanzania. I don't want that, right? But so the media has a huge effect here. I wanted to say one other thing about the kids. Shoot, maybe we'll have to save it for the post game. All right, sad day. Okay, and for Christ's sake, that's the problem. We're preaching, in this case, preaching to the choir. Everybody who listens to this show obviously doesn't believe in witchcraft. Nobody does, right? I think. I just wish there was a way to reach other people. I mean, this is why, but it's part of the larger fight of being progressive, being in favor of education, being against old superstitions. And it's, okay, I remember now. The other part of this is that people in America can't relate to it. You can't relate to being attacked by people who believe in witchcraft.
Right, it sounds so outlandish.
You can't relate to being an albino in Africa. So when there's the Charlie Hebdo attacks by Muslim extremists, you go, oh my God, that could be me. Oh my God, we got to stop them. We got to stop them, right? When a kid's getting his, limbs chopped off in Africa, and you think, that can't be me. There's no chance somebody practicing witchcraft is going to mutilate me. And so, I don't care as much about it.
Yeah.
Right? They don't necessarily think that out loud, but subconsciously that's what they're thinking. And that's why there's not a lot of action.
Yeah, I mean, what drives people to act? It's usually fear or self-interest.
Yeah. All right. Anna was right. We ended on a serious story.
I know.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's a good story, though.
Yeah. Look, as I see the pictures, I think I wish somebody would adopt all those kids, but that's not the answer either. The answer is long-term. All right. Okay. We're going to have a great post game for you guys as always. That's for the members. Bye-bye.